Jamila Walters, aka Jamz Supernova, has been involved in radio in one form or another since she was a teenager. She began her career volunteering at places like South London community-led radio Sydenham, before moving on to youth radio at Represent, BBC One Extra, and in 2021 onto Six Music, where she presents a weekly Saturday afternoon show. Prior to becoming a professional presenter at the Beeb, she worked as an intern at One Extra, working her way up the ranks before gaining her own show in 2015. As a live DJ, she's played all over the world, spinning a mixture of funky, grime, broken beat, as well as a cosmic mix of world electronic sounds. She recently completed a themed monthly residency at Carpet Shop called Dance Around the World. We chatted about her experiences as a South London girl making her way in the industry, getting the balance right on small and large gigs, and her mission to shine a light on the modern sounds of the world black diaspora. My first question is about the Brit School. You applied to go to the Brit School. Can you tell me, A, how you got in, and B, what the atmosphere was like? What kind of things did you do there?
Yeah, I mean, I only applied because somebody was going to see it. I didn't even know about it. I was just went with a friend. She wanted to be a singer. And she was like, oh, would you come and check out this college with me? And I was like, yeah, sure. And then when I got there, I was like, oh, it's not just like music. You don't have to be talented per se at something. They had lots of different divisions. Like they had like a sort of theatre design section. They had a media section. So they had like roles and courses for people behind the scenes. So I did I saw the media department. I saw the radio studio. That was the first thing I saw, and I was never been in a radio studio, but I've always listened to radio. And then I saw the TV studio, and I was just like, wow, this is kind of like everything that I've always wanted to do, but not known about until I'd seen it in person. And then to get in, I just had to write an essay, really, about, I think I wrote something about The Simpsons, and then I might have wrote another one about The Wire, and like how much I love The Wire as a TV show, and then an interview, and that was it. So it was pretty low lift. I'm not like one of the talented Brit School alumni. It was just, just the love of media.
Well, what was it like being there on a day-to-day basis? In my mind, it's kind of like the kids from Fame. Lots of people sort of dancing on tables at the kitchen refectory and stuff like that. Is that what it was like?
Yes, it is.
Really?
It was. And when people come to school in like pajamas or, you know, really out there sort of fashion, I mean, it was a really fertile place to find yourself. Every week somebody was coming out, and it was like a moment in the playground. So-and-so's out, woo! They identify as, and then whatever, sexuality they identified as. So I think it was very liberating. And having grown up in like Southeast London, going to school in Deptford, I went to a school called Deptford Green, which I really loved. Very like inner state school. I think it was sometimes a bit restricting if you were if you stepped outside of...
If you weren't a cookie cutter student.
Yeah, and you were a bit weird, or you were a neek, or you were a nerd, or, I don't know. It was sometimes you just be a little bit of a chameleon, and I felt like when I went to the Brit School, I was actually like, oh, I'm not weird. I'm actually not weird at all. On the spectrum of weirdness, I could be more weird,
So, prior to that, had you had an ambition to get involved in music, or how did you envisage your life unfolding?
Well, someone told me in school that you would be a great presenter because you're so bubbly or something like that. And I grew up watching like MTV Base and Trevor Nelson doing The Lick and stuff like that, and TRL. So I was like, right, I think I've accepted early teens that I can't actually sing. I tried. I was in I did like musical theatre. I was in Oliver, and I just can't sing, and that's okay. And I was like, well, if I can't sing, then I want to do something that is close to music. And I felt like presenting music would be the next obvious choice because you still get to do the fun stuff. But you don't have to be like that talented. It's just more about being passionate. And then the radio, that was the real sort of like light bulb moment, because I think seeing the radio studio and being like, because even still with the TV presenting, I'm still not very much like a flamboyant character, or I'm like an introverted extrovert, you know, I'm not always on. And I sometimes struggled with that, like in auditions for the TV stuff or being in those environments. I was quite shy. And then the radio felt like more of a safe space to share music and not have to be like jazz hands and cartwheeling.
What is it about the TV aspect that kind of pushes you into your shell? Because I've always thought you'd be a really great TV presenter.
Oh, I think it's just I don't really know, because even to this day I do TV, but I do struggle with it. It's one of those places you don't get to practice. I think that's a big one. And maybe I should be the person in the bedroom mirror, like going over the lines, doing it and doing it and doing it again. But maybe that would help me. But I think it's more, I feel like I'm a version of myself, not myself. Whereas when I'm on the radio, I feel like that's my complete self. So if I say something that maybe sounds a bit, I might mispronounce something, or I get things back to front, you know, it doesn't really matter so much, because I think people have a different kind of patience when it's on the radio. It's a bit more human, whereas I think on TV, there's this, and I do it to myself, this kind of need to be perfect. So I hear myself talking and I'm like, I don't talk like that. And I see my head doing all these funny little head movements because I'm trying to remember the lines, you know, and it's just not me. I want to get there. I think for me, it will come with age and not caring so much, like being like, this is who I am. Like every time I've done the Glastonbury broadcast for TV, I think over the last 4 years, I've definitely gotten better. But yeah, it's not something you get to have a run at every week, like radio.
How old were you when you left the Brit School?
I was 18.
And have you ever had like a full-time job that wasn't to do with music in any way? So what kind of jobs were you doing before you kind of wheeled your way into the radio world?
Well, I knew I was like, I'm not going to university, and I had this master plan. So I'd always worked with kids. I'd always worked all my life, like since I was 13, paper round, 15. I used to be an usher in a theatre. Then I worked in a health food shop, sort of late teens, early 20s. And I used to work at after school club as well and teach football to kids. So I had all like my CRB checks and all the appropriate things to work with children. And all my family have been in education, really. On my mum's side, my mum, my stepdad always worked in education. So I used to TA. I used to be a teaching assistant. And I got a job. So out of my plan was I would leave college and I was going to be getting a job straight at the BBC. That's what I thought would happen. What I was going to do was going to go and work in a school, and then I would use the half terms and the holidays to do work experience. So I managed to get a job in my mum's school, working in a year 4 class as a teaching assistant. So after doing like ad hoc sort of, they call you up on the day agency work, then going into a school full time. And then, every holiday I would go and I went to MTV, I went to Channel 4, and then the last placement was the BBC, and then I didn't leave.
So what things did you learn from doing a regular job that you could bring with you into music and the world of radio? And
discipline.
Really?
Yeah, discipline, having to do the things you don't always want to do because you know that there's fun coming. Like even in the play, even I think I always saw, even for the kids, you know, that you have the classroom, right? But the reward is the playground. So you have to get through the classroom section to have the reward of going into the playground. And that was kind of much of like my early days working in radio. You know, you have the pre-prod working on other people's shows, doing the compliance, writing script notes. That's all the stuff that might be a little bit more boring, but the reward is the studio. But you have to do the first bit to get to the next bit. So I think having that kind of mind frame and not trying to leapfrog into just doing the fun stuff, and the discipline of having to get up and be an early riser, even if you had been out the night before, because you know I had to get to school before the kids got there. So I was only 19, so I'm still going out with my friends and being out till silly o'clock the night before. And I remember one time I woke up and I was like, hungover, like painfully hungover. And I just called my mum. I was like, I don't think I could go in. She was like, Jamila, get up and get in now. It's my name you're riding on. You better be in before I'm there. And I managed to make my way in and do the full school day. But yeah, the discipline of like, doesn't matter. Get up, get to work.
I've had a few incidents like this with my son who does what he can to oversleep, and I don't need to go in till this time. And yeah, I think it is quite a nice thing actually to develop that kind of inner resolve. And what was the first radio station you worked at when you left the Brit School?
So I was in Sydenham FM. I had a show on Sydenham FM. It was like top of the high street in southeast London. It was a computer shop. So you went in, but when I say computer shop, like kind of higgledy-piggledy, lots of like computer screens about to be fixed sort of thing. And then you go down in the basement, and then they had a radio studio, and every summer they would get like a restricted license so they could broadcast on FM. So it was mostly run by like local community people in terms of they weren't necessarily broadcasters, like love of music. One guy was a lawyer, one guy worked in another high street shop, one guy was a theatre guy, one guy had the bookshop. But yeah, I was like 16 and I just go down there and let myself in and with a key and then do a radio broadcast from there. I think I was ripping music from YouTube. I think I was just playing what I thought was popular at the time, which wasn't particularly, it was quite mainstream at the time. I don't think I was going that deep, like musically. I probably wouldn't find myself until I got to find more of myself. Because then I went to Represent Radio, which is a community station that still exists for youth in London. And I had a friend and he was like, why are you on this like old people station with these old guys? He's like, come to Represent, like that's where it's at. And then I went and did a trial show, and then I was there for a good couple of years until I started my show on the BBC. So Represent was like my playground.
But you did a lot of backroom stuff as well as presenting, didn't you? Were you doing the two simultaneously, or did you progress from one to the other?
I did the two simultaneously. So like when I started my intern at One Extra and Radio 1, I started at Represent Radio, exactly, literally within the same week. And it was just like a kind of like two-way street of being able to be in the BBC building, watching all these people that I've been listening to all my life, watching them at work, and then that evening running to Represent and kind of emulating them in a sense. I always make a joke about I really want to be Mr. Jam. So but I had access to his music, so I could just burn the CDs off and then go down to Represent and recreate those shows. And it was like a playground, there was no, again, it was like that sort of play. There was no wrong way of doing it. It was just kind of about trying and testing things. So I was just constantly testing, constantly learning, constantly trying different voices, I ended up doing the drive time show on Represent, which was about 10 months. And that was like, when I said about the TV stuff, like being able to have a run at something weekly to become good at something. Like I knew I wasn't going to get good at radio unless I had this like intense period of doing it all the time, as me being on the other side of the mic. So when they offered me doing the drive time show, it was 5 till 7 p.m. every weekday. They said they'd pay for my travel to get there. So I was like, okay, cool, but I still got to work because I lived on my own and I have to have money. I got no, can't rely on my mum or my dad. So I was like, I still have to work and I still want to have fun as well. So I was doing double shifts at BBC. So I'd work in the morning, do an 8 a.m. till 4 p.m. shift on whatever shift they would give me. Then I'd run to Represent Radio, do the 5 till 7 o'clock show. Then I'd run back to the BBC and then work 8 p.m. till 2 a.m. And I did that every weekday for about 10 months. It was unsustainable past that.
How did you manage that? I mean, that is a heavy work schedule.
I would fall asleep in the toilets. I would have a quick break and go in the toilets. Lucky, BBC's got very clean toilets. So I just put the seats up and then just have a little power nap. And then, that'd be it. But yeah, it was unsustainable much past that point. And I think I did get to the summer and I started flaking out a bit after doing it for about 9 months. But it was incredible because I got better. It was 10 hours of radio a week. I times that by, I thought if I times that by a month, times that by a year, that's my 10,000 hours.
So do you believe in that kind of 10,000 hour sort of theory of becoming good at something?
Definitely. Yeah. I mean, I was talking to him on my podcast, Wretch32's rapper, and he was saying if you thought you needed 10,000 hours, then you probably need 100,000 hours now because of all the distractions and all of the, you know, I guess the access point is so open, which is a great thing. But then to actually really become good at a craft, I think you need more time.
Yeah,
which is hard to come by.
When did you start to see yourself as a DJ?
So that was a bit later. Like I always wanted to DJ. I'd always loved the idea of DJing. There's a picture of me at like People's Day, which is a free music event that used to happen in Lewisham every year. There's a picture of me at 10, like on the decks, like I must have just been like, you know, taking a picture or like looking over. So I always had like an interest, and there was decks at the youth club, but there's always like quite dominant characters around them, so you never really got a look in. And then it's when I started to really take radio seriously, I had a mentor, and he was like, he'd come from being on BBC Radio 1 Extra. His name's Gavin G-Child, and he'd come with that sort of first cohort of all the black hip hop and R&B DJs that were going through BBC and, you know, gigging up and down the M20. And he was like, look, if you're going to take being on radio seriously, you need to learn how to DJ because you're going to get booked to play gigs. And if you can't DJ, it's going to look bad. Like they're not going to take you seriously as a specialist DJ. It's different if you want to be like daytime. If you want to be a specialist radio presenter, you have to learn how to DJ. So that kind of gave me like the kick up the bum that I needed. And he sold me his decks on a payment plan. So he had 1,000 Mark IIs, I think. So yeah, Pioneer 1,000 Mark IIs. I paid him 600 quid, he sold me them, and I paid them off in installments. Because before that, I just had some techniques that are my uncles that have been passed down. I still got those passed down like heirlooms, but I didn't really know what I was doing. I had like Serato vinyl, but I was just mucking about. But when I got the CDJs, that's when I was like, right, I'm going to do that 10,000 hours thing. So in my living room, every single night, just mixing the same 2 records.
So do you remember your first club gig?
Yeah.
Where was it? What was it like?
It was at a queer night called Booty Bakery in the Macbeth in East London. And it was a weeknight, and I could only play one specific set. So I thought that that's what they had wanted. And then when I got there, you could just start with like some old school just to warm people up, like old school. They're like, yeah, like old school R&B and hip hop. I was like, I mean, I can try. So I started playing that. But obviously, to mix hip hop and mix R&B, it's not the same as mixing dance music. And I had started with dance music, so I just clanging it out like for about an hour, and then I switched into what I had planned to play. But it was just horrendous. It was horrible. And I remember the security guard coming over to me, and he patted me on the back. He was like, "It got better." The old Jamaican guy, it got better. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, oh God, yeah, it was horrid. I mean, but it didn't stop me. It didn't make me think I'm not doing this again. But I don't know why. I took it on the chin, and then, because then I'd have to mix on radio. Oh yeah, Gavin, my mentor, he'd make me mix on radio every week. So once he heard a couple of my mixes, he's like, right, you need to mix on the radio. Every Friday you're going to mix on the radio. And my knees would be like literally physically knocking, like slapping each other before it was about to happen. And I'd be so nervous. And he was like, it doesn't matter. I don't care how you sound. We're just going to do it. You know, it's at that time, not many people were listening. So I think having him in my corner, because I probably would have gone to him and cried about that gig, and he'd be like, yeah, okay, and what? I've had loads of those, get back up. That kind of thing.
I mean, the thing about DJing is that when gigs go well, it's great, but they don't teach you anything. And the ones you really learn a lot from are the disasters,
of course,
and the ones where you lose the floor and you don't get it back.
Yeah.
And that is very much part of that 10,000 hours, isn't it? The more you do those, the less they start to happen, because you've you learn techniques to get you out of those holes.
Yeah.
What's the favourite place that you have to play? Where are the places that you love to play?
I guess,
as a club DJ.
Yeah. I guess they've changed over the years. I mean, I've always liked creating my own nights. I think there was definitely a need for me to kind of create my own nights. So I started off on the London circuit, just kind of taking those bookings, like the Booty Bakery one. There was a couple of promoters that had a few different nights that would let me jump on. But you're always playing to their audience. And I knew that if I was to kind of really grow as a DJ, that it would probably be smart for me to create my own night and to build a night around all the stuff that I was into musically, and to put myself next to DJs that I wanted to be booked with, because I think people have always found it hard to like put me in a box. Well, what does she play if she's more open format, or who would she play well with? So I booked myself alongside people like Rosca or Branco from Portugal, or Zed Bias even. I booked myself next to these people to show, yes, you can be open format, but you can still be able to dip into these worlds. And I think I always flourished more playing in a night that I created, putting the music, to be able to be like, this is a musically open space. And I think that's even probably today. Like, I do club nights in Peckham, and I've been doing those for the last couple of years, and they're probably like the most transformative sets, for me, playing and feeling like I'm really connected with a crowd. And then outside of that, I think it's always been like places that have built that kind of audience. So like, if I play anywhere with Giles Peterson, I'm gonna have a good time. I'm gonna have a locked in audience that are open and understanding and happy to go on the journey and happy for you to bring it up and bring it down. So any of his festivals, and we did a tour recently across the UK, and all of those were amazing. But small clubs, 200 cap for me are sort of the best times that I have, quite close up and intimate, but people not just focusing on me, but also wanting to be able to dance.
Yeah. It's funny, isn't it? The bigger the bigger the venue, the more impressive it is, but the less fun I always find.
Definitely.
I really love those sort of tight packed little dance floors. And
and we had this thing recently, like with the Peckham shows, like, we were trying to get content, you want to sell the next night with the content that you got from the night before. And then we're actually, something's just started to feel a bit icky about it for me. Like this idea of changing the lights and taking away the smoke just so you could get good content. And then I started feeling funny, like when the footage was coming back and it's like of people dancing, like visibly. You see their faces, you see them, you could identify them. I just thought that's not really like a safe space on the dance floor for people to go and like lose themselves, which is what dancing and raving is about. And if you feel like you're being filmed under like surveillance, and then I'm going to go and post it, and I've never even spoken to you, but I'm posting you dancing. I don't know, I just started feeling really weird about it. So now we've just gone kind of like, it's all blurry. There's smoke, there's red lights, it's super blurry. You had to be there, I guess.
Yeah. You've just done was it in November you did like a month of gigs at Carpet Shop?
Yeah, in Peckham.
What was there a concept behind that?
Yeah, so I mean, I knew I wanted to do, so I've been playing at Carpet Shop since 2023. I did it all night, and then I just loved it there. It's a really simple room. It's run by the same guys that do Corsica. Really nice, tight family. I always say from the door to the floor, like the security are nice, the bar staff are nice, and it's just a room. It's just an archway under Peckham Rye, this train station. So in the daytime, you can hear the trains rumbling over. But they've got really nice stack sound system. And they got, they make the room look and feel intimate. So even if it's a 250 cap, that's probably at a push. I would say that's not very comfortable. 50 people on the dance floor, still nice. And I've just had some great nights there. And I wanted to sort of do something that rounded off my time there. Because I also know that, I need to make space for other younger promoters to come through. And there's not many 250 cap places for them to be able to do that. So I kind of wanted to like mark my time there by doing something special, and a 4-week residency felt like the great way to do it. But I wanted to theme it. I didn't want it to just be, because, I don't know how you find it, but I know you run nights. Like, London's so political to try book people. It's the hardest thing. It's like a jigsaw. Like, even your brethrens, you'd be like, oh, I want to book you to come play with me. Or, oh yeah, but I can't because I've got my own thing, or I've got exclusivity here, or so-and-so's got that festival here. It's like an absolute nightmare.
People don't realise how restricted you can be, because if I play in one place, promoters don't want me to play anywhere like 4 weeks before,
and 4 weeks after.
And some of them are asking for like 6 weeks before.
And that's your bread and butter.
It's just like, what?
And also, but there is a sort of argument, yes, if you overplay in London, it does become counterproductive. So it is this gentle kind of like dance that you have to do.
Striking the right balance.
Yeah. So, and then, it's a 250 cap club. So you're looking at what? The budget's 1.5 to pay people. It works if it's 2 people on the lineup, 750 each. But then when you start booking more people, it starts to go down. Like, it's very much a mates rates thing. What if they need to travel? Okay, like, it's either do it or don't. It comes down to that. This is the room, 250 cap. We're trying to keep tickets at a certain price point. If you'd like to come and play, then you're more than welcome to. But if it's not for you, kind of no worries. So I was like, right, I'm going to theme the nights. I wanted to really kind of relate what I do on the radio with how I play in the clubs. And that was kind of focusing on music from around the world and being able to go from those more traditional sounds into like the deeper club sounds, and then picking lineups that I felt could represent that journey or represent different parts of those regions. And it was so fun to, once it kind of clicked in, then telling the story of it and the artwork and picking the DJs. And then all of the nights, I've never danced so much. I've been sober during this run. And I have had the most fun dancing. Like, my step count's been crazy. Like, just dancing to the DJs and like being in the booth and getting gassed and being excited and watching how they play and watching, because people had their themes as well. So for example, like Louis VI played at our Caribbean night. He's a rapper, but he also DJs, but he specifically DJs a type of Caribbean music called Boyon, which is from his island, Dominican Republic. And Dominica. And his set was so specific for that hour. He planned, it was planned meticulously. He wanted to get those tracks in. People had their flags out. It was incredible. It was just so much energy. And then it allowed me to think about what gaps am I plugging in and what story do I want to tell amongst these expertise, the people that are experts, I think.
You're listening to Bill Brewster with the DJ History podcast.
And your Six Music show has kind of become almost an alternative world music thing, hasn't it? I don't know. It's sort of developed over the years, hasn't it? And,
I don't really know how we got here, but it's always been my interest. Yeah, I've always been my interest. But you're right. Like, what it started off as is definitely kind of not where we're at now, which is good. And that has been my radio journey. Like, what I started off on One Extra is not when I left One Extra, it didn't sound the same. I think being open to letting your taste grow and being led by curiosity, for me, is what keeps me sustained and what keeps me like interested. And I always had like an interest in like music from around the world, specifically more on a club level through SoundCloud initially. But then knowing that there's actually, obviously you've got the club side, but then you've got the traditional side, and then you've got things that have been like reclaimed or repurposed or reissued, then you kind of just like, it's endless. It's just endless source of music from everywhere. And initially, actually, from the Six Music thing, we were coming out of 2020. I got my show in 2021, and we're coming out of a period of I would say hard times for black people in the world, to be honest. Black Lives Matter, but a lot of conversation was coming out of that. And I felt quite galvanized to make radio that spoke to the black diaspora. Yeah. So that's kind of what also sort of fueled me. But then as I've sort of kept on going, it's wider than that. It's what other diasporas or other minority voices that, I want to share their stories on the radio or their influences or how much their music has actually influenced UK music. But if you go further back, where does it take us? So I just love learning about different cultures and uplifting different cultures. And I think it's an important thing to do, you know.
How do you source the music for this? Because I mean, you play a lot of music from little nations and little countries, and I often wonder how the hell you've come across this music. It's not immediately evident in most record stores that there's all this music coming out. What's the secret?
The internet. Yeah,
Really?
that's been. I'm a digital digger, definitely, first and foremost. Like starting off on SoundCloud, like there were tracks that I was hearing like in those early days of being on One Extra, and they were like ballet funk tracks from Brazil, but everybody was taking that like boom cha cha boom cha, like, and then putting a R&B vocal over it. You know, SoundCloud kind of made things universalized. I'm not sure that's the word, but like brought the worlds together, basically. It made it easier to just follow a hashtag. All right, I like ballet funk. I'm going to keep following that hashtag, And it was mostly edits at the time that was kind of coming across and playing. But then I think you mature out of edits and you want to find music that is more original, because everyone's playing edits as well. And Bandcamp, I think that was a great source for me. In lockdown, I got really into Bandcamp. And again, it's a similar process of like following a hashtag, but Bandcamp's like even more specific. You could type in Reunion Island, Maloya music. Let's see the most bought records of that of that specific traditional music, you know. Then you might be like Maloya electronic, add that hashtag in, you know, and then you get a whole new other batch of music. So I think well, thanks to Bandcamp, I think they've got a great interface, and I think it just kind of it works. But then I find that sometimes on the online world, you know, you can get a bit repetitive and you're going back to the same labels that you've always gone to, or the same artists because you bought their music. So you find yourself in this kind of like loop. And I think that for me, then getting out to record shops has been an important addition. And I only really started doing that in the last couple of years or so, being like, right, once a month, I'm going to go to a record shop for the day, you know, unconstrained. Maybe I'll go to a couple. I'm going to give myself a budget of 100 quid, but I'm also going to write stuff down. Like, I might not want to buy it right there and then, but I'm going to write that label down or that release down. And then that I just think is kind of opens up another network of like finding music and musical discovery. And then you've got your emails, and that's like my last resort.
Yeah, the emails, kind of, I mean, I get between 500 and 700 emails a week with music in them.
So much.
And trying to go through them, I probably spend at least a day a week trying to kind of wade through them. It's like you had a relationship with the British Council and Selector Radio. I mean, I kind of guess your interest in world music was a driver for that. I mean, is that how it happened? Because you've already had this interest in the black diaspora around the world. And
yeah, I mean, I'd done some bits of British Council, like gone and done some workshops. I went to Zambia for them, and maybe I went somewhere else, can't quite remember. And when they presented the radio show to me, it was like with this hope of like doing all these trips. I was like, oh my God, so I'm going to get to like travel. Because sometimes that's the hardest thing as a DJ is actually the travel, isn't it? And that has always been on my bucket list. I always wanted to be like a traveling, touring DJ, or being able to reach places and to be able to play. But obviously not all places have the infrastructures for you to be able to, you know, you're financing yourself to get there, which can work, but obviously that's not sustainable all the time either.
I mean, you're sort of trying to go to places that you're really interested in, but often they don't really have the budget to even do that. So you have to go somewhere where they do have the budget and then try and fit in.
To pivot to the place you really want to go.
Yeah. I mean, I played a gig in Pakistan last week, and that was financed by the British Council. And then I did a little local thing for nothing.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how you have to work it, don't you? It's you know, measuring the gigs you get paid for against the gigs you don't get paid for.
Definitely, yeah. And obviously the gigs you don't get paid for are the ones you're going to have the amazing time or meet somebody or something will happen there that will push you as a DJ even further. or your craft or your understanding of music or, whatever. But the British Council were kind of giving me this opportunity. You do a radio show for us, we'll take you on trips. It was kind of like, I was like, well, it's a no-brainer. And the radio show was really transformative as well. So they wanted a straight UK show. I would program 2 hours of UK music only. And it would have to be all different genres. So from punk to grime to jazz, some classical, where it would be just the best of the UK. And I really actually took it very seriously and really enjoyed that role of creating that show and being open to these different genres. And that's what kind of led me to having relationships with bands like English Teacher or the label like Nice One Recordings, was by doing that radio show. And I think that actually helped me when I got to 6, away from my Saturday show. I feel like I can comfortably sit in and cover someone like Hugh Stevens and probably have a reference for most of the bands that he plays, and I think that's been an important thing for me, is to be versatile.
What's the difference between kind of what you were doing on One Extra and what you're kind of doing now on Six Music? Is there a different approach, or if so, what are the differences?
I mean, I think the mission is still the same. Like, the mission has always been to have unadulterated taste that's uncompromised, and that's uncompromised by being told what to play, one, and what's popular, but always trying to have a forward thinking of what do people need. It's not just what's popular. What do people need? What would enrich them without it feeling like I'm forcing it down their throat? So when I was on One Extra, my mission was to expand what people thought of as black music, because it was very rigid at the time. It was like either R&B, traditional R&B, hip hop, or rap. Those were the sort of things that you fitted into, rap being the more UK stuff. But if you were a jazz artist or an alternative artist, you weren't getting played on One Extra. And it just felt ridiculous to me for people like your Blood Oranges or your Neos, or they just felt like there were so many artists that we were just missing tricks on Ezra Collective, who are black and making music, so therefore it's black music. So therefore we should be playing it. So I felt like I had this sort of niche to really push it and to really go all the way with it and to make people feel like, yes, you belong here. They were so happy to be played on One Extra, because you still want the appreciation of your your kinfolk. You still want to be appreciated. It's all good going and playing amazing shows, but if no one looks like you in the audience, that does do something to you. So there's always these artists that did want that nod from One Extra. It meant a lot to them. They want the 6 play, they want the Radio 1 play, yes, of course, but they still want the One Extra nod. And I was kind of able to give that to them. And it wasn't without a fight. I don't think the station definitely got it at first, but by the time I'd left, they did. And now they call it One Extra's alternative show. So it's now a show that will live on beyond me. And then when I got to 6, I guess I was less kind of gung-ho with the mission because it's an alternative station anyway. So I didn't have to be it's alternative music, but I think it was just telling a story from a perspective that they hadn't had before. They hadn't had a permanent woman of colour on their schedule. So I had to be quite brave in choosing what stories to tell and how I told them.
You're listening to another DJ History interview with Bill Brewster.
Do you think having Giles coming on directly after you, that kind of that helps with how you present the music? Because Giles's show is clearly not necessarily that commercial in a lot of ways, but people love Giles because he's the anti-algorithm.
Yeah.
He's not a Spotify algorithm. He'll play it and you're like, what the hell is this? But that's the joy of what he does. And I think, that's kind of what you're aiming for too.
Definitely. I was so lucky. And maybe people would be like, we should never have let her do that. I covered Giles in lockdown. They gave me 3 weeks to cover him. This is before I even thought of for the show. I didn't even know about, I wasn't even, 6 wasn't on my radar to have a show on 6. It just came out of nowhere. Giles needed to take some time off in lockdown. He'd been going hard every week, and they had 6 weeks. He takes 6 weeks off every year. So they gave me 3 weeks, and they gave Moses Boyd 3 weeks. And those 3 weeks, I was just like, oh, it's so cool here. Like you can play something and then the next day someone will be like, oh my God, my Bandcamp sales tripled in numbers, you know. And probably what I was playing wasn't even really that deep because I think I'm still finding my feet, unearthing that side of me as well. Because also some of that stuff, like, yeah, me playing Ezra on 1Extra is like revolutionary. Me playing Ezra on 6 is like, it's playlisted already, you know, so you have to go a bit deeper. So I was like, oh, this is kind of feels like I'm starting again and I'm learning again, but also I get to program this whole show on a Saturday afternoon and no one's telling me what to play. So when they offered me a show, I was like, well, I'm only going to do a show if I get to play 100% of what I want to play. And so now my kind of baseline is, well, Giles can, you know, that's kind of how I see it. Like if I never had the experience of sitting in his seat and doing the show or trying to do the show in the way that he does it, maybe I wouldn't be as brave. But because I had that first experience, like in my head, I'm like, what would Giles do? No, he wouldn't fucking play that, you know, if he doesn't have to. What's more important, the integrity, you know? So yeah, I think he's definitely for me and a lot of people like a figure that I look to in terms of really believing in the music you play, even if the people around you don't.
Do you feel like you've got that 100% kind of control over the output that you do? I mean, it seems to be working for you, so why would they ask you to change it?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't have taken the show if I didn't know, because on 1Extra was 100% me as well. And I spent so long building up, you know, to have that control. Because when I first started on 1Extra, they were like, well, let's just do 50-50, 50% you, 50% us. And then I managed to like eventually get it to 100% me. So I think there was no way I was going to go back. But knowing that I could go further in a way with Giles, with what Giles does, that was kind of quite eye-opening.
Where do you see yourself in 10 years' time?
Oh, God. I mean, radio always. I'll always be on air. I don't know how that will look or what that would look like, but I'd always want to be on the radio. I would love to do what I'm doing for the next 10 years. Again, you know, I think if you're thinking about people like Giles, him having that time on that slot to have really nourished it and developed it, and listeners will come and listeners will go, and it will constantly be like that, you know. But it's a big part of people's lives, their fabric of their lives, and you only have that if you have time in a place. And I think that when I've been on some of the younger settings, they don't always give you that time. It's like, oh, year and a half, time's up, moving on, you know. Oh, you're over 30, what happens now, you know? And I want to be able to like be somewhere where I can really, really, really make my mark over a period of time and be part of people's lives for a period of time. So I'd love to carry on this Saturday show. I'm happy where I am. Another hour wouldn't hurt, just because, you know, 2 hours is great, but it's a lot to fit in, and sometimes we are rushing.
It goes quickly, doesn't it? Surprisingly.
30-minute mix, maybe a conversation that leaves me with an hour of music, but if you just had an extra 60 minutes, that would be great. And then with the DJing, I mean, I don't know how you feel. I mean, Bill, you've seen DJing, I'm sure, from so many different like iterations and how it's changed and the ups and the downs of it. And I want to continue DJing always. I always wanted to be able to DJ. I think sometimes I'm finding it harder to make a living out of DJing. You know, sustainable living that justifies if I'm going to leave my family, if I'm going to go somewhere. You know, am I losing money? Am I paying everybody before I'm even getting paid? You know, and I think that's kind of what I'm struggling with a little bit. Like, but I want to weather the storm because I genuinely do love it. And I think like during the residency and playing, I do love it. I really enjoy it. You know, I'd do it for free, but I can't do it for free because I've got it's hard to match the responsibilities. Like 5 years ago, it felt easier because it's just me. It's just me. I don't have to worry about anybody else. Whereas I feel like now I'm weighing up so much in my head. It's not just a gig. It's like, it's a gig, it's time, it's traveling there, it's traveling back. It's like, take away the agent fee, take away the management fee, take away the tax. okay, like, is that sustaining the business? You know, can I even pay myself out of that? It's a lot. So yeah, I don't know.
I think the way to make a living from music, a sustainable way, is to just have 4 or 5 things that you're involved in that overlap with each other but are kind of different. And you seem to have kind of found the sweet spot for that, because honestly, it's just so hard to make a living from music full time for a long time.
Yes, for a long time.
You might reach it fairly quickly, think, oh, this is easy, but actually sustaining it is incredibly difficult. You know, how do you go about that? There's not really a trick to it, is there?
No, and some people, you know, some people are able to do it with ease and uncompromised, and some people there is that compromise. You know, the bigger the room, do you change what you play? You know, there's always the sort of questions around things like that. The bigger the fears, the more the expectation, you know. But one thing I did really love was doing the tour, the UK tour recently with Giles. We were playing to 200 cap rooms. It was a small venue tour specifically for small venues. And we did Sheffield, Newcastle, Todmorden, Golden Lion. I love those guys. And then ended in Birmingham at the Hare and Hounds. One of those shows was a Thursday night, 7 to 11. So it was almost like a bums on seat kind of show, but people came and still danced and still raved like in that way. It was in Newcastle. So that made me think that, but I think there is sustainability in that approach, not just the 7 to 11, but there is sustainability in thinking about the room size, in thinking about who you're playing to, like being really sort of intentional. And people paid to come and see us. You know, I thought that was really special. So I'm not like all doom and gloom. I'm definitely not doom and gloom, but I just want to be able to continue. And maybe, to be honest, like my next sort of chapters as a DJ, it's like, okay, I can do a really good like 2.5 hour set. But what does a longer set look like? I played longer sets and I've played all day, but like, what does that journey look like? When you're going to play in like, I don't know, Italy, and for the most part on that European circuit, you're not booked because you're big, you're booked because you're a good DJ and you have to hold that room. Can I hold that room and do a 4-hour set like Theo Parrish? Like that's where I want to get to next, you know?
Yeah, I think that the 2-hour set is almost like you play your greatest hits.
Yeah, bangers, just bam, bam, bam.
You know, it's like I've counted, because you always think that you play more records than you are, but then you get home and you have a look and you're like, actually, I played 22 tracks. That's what I played.
Yeah.
But it feels like because you're looking at so many different tracks that you might play, and then you don't play them.
Yeah.
So even just getting an extra hour just gives you that little bit more leeway to experiment a bit more.
Yes.
And I always find that I play much more conservatively for 2 hours than I would for 3 hours.
Yeah, and that spontaneity and that possibility and the confidence of like working a dance floor. Also the confidence of being able to bring it down a minute. We're here for 3 hours or 4 hours. So let's have a little half an hour like of just like locked in grooves, and then we can bring it back up. But sometimes I can just be like relentlessly like bam, bam, bam. So I wanna work on my craft. You know, I always want to feel like I listen to a lot of like business podcasts, and often they're like completely nothing related to music. They're like e-commerce or fashion or beauty brands and women founders and stuff. But there was one guy who runs Shopify, and he was saying, as a founder, every year you should have to requalify for your job because the pace of the industry moves so fast. And I was like, I quite like that because it's so easy to get complacent. You do the same mix, you've got the same EQs, you do the same blends, you know, same with radio, I'm going to do the same link. So it's like, what would it look like for me to like requalify for my for my DJ job, for my radio job? Like, what would I like to spend some time honing, you know, or thinking about or trying differently?
Who were the women on the radio that inspired you when you were kind of coming up the ranks?
I'd definitely say, obviously, I mean everybody, sort of my generation is going to say Annie Mac in terms of like what she did on a commercial level. the empire that she built was just phenomenal. I remember her sending out cocoa and that being like a big deal. And then, now that's just like light work for her. But she's always moving. She's always moving in terms of her brand and cultivating it and talking to her audience. She's very good at growing with her audience, which I think is good to see. In terms of like other women that I've always like really admired, there was an Australian DJ called, she still DJs, Nina Las Vegas. She had her own record label called NLV. And that's the first time I saw like a woman really going hard on a record label, running it like a tight ship. I mean, she was sort of the early person that I saw touring as well. It was like her and a New York DJ called Jubilee, and they were doing the Asia tours and they were doing the Europe tours, and they had like a touring circuits going. And then I guess, I'm trying to think like I don't think when I was coming through, but then it was like laterally, like looking at like my sort of my peer group was like Madam X's and Barely Legals. That was like my sort of cohort of the women that I kind of came through within at that generationally at that same time. But I'm also really inspired by the women that are coming after. I know, I think about Sherelle. Sherelle's actually a great example. So Sherelle, for those that don't know, she's like a 160 jungle footwork DJ. And she used to do photos for me at my club nights. When I did nights in Dalston, we were unrepresented together, so she'd do some bits for me. And she just had this interest. It would start with footwork, but that was her thing. And we were going on the same sort of forums, and I was playing a little bit of footwork, but nothing like she was into. She was like, I'm obsessed with this, genre. And it's a niche. It was a niche. It wasn't an underground tip. Obviously, like drum and bass is always massive. But on an underground tip, fusing drum and bass and jungle and some of the older sounds, nobody was really doing it like her. But she was so committed to her sound and to the cause that I think it just sort of took off. And it was just amazing to see someone being so passionate about what they believe in. Again, like that thing, even if no one else around them, even if it's few and far between. And then for her to go and play, like we're up in central London, for her to take that to the outer net, which is this new, shiny, glossy, live venue, and to do a night there, or to do a night, 160 night at the Roundhouse. Like, I think that's amazing. And then technically, I love her as a DJ. I think she's very honest in her delivery, like like she'll tell you when she's down, or she'll tell you the realities of what it is to be a DJ touring in that way. I think that's also what I've learned as well. I don't think I want to tour, but not tour constantly. I can't tour constantly. I'm not built for that.
Yeah, I mean, I was the main carer for my two kids, so I went through a period where I didn't tour at all because I couldn't be. I'd get them up for school and all that kind of stuff. So, I know what that's like when you're trying to raise a family and have a family life. Touring is not for you.
Yeah, you have to sort of sidestep it for a second. But DJ is lifelong. Yeah. And it's like, you went, like you said, you went to Pakistan the other day, and like if you said, I want to do an Asia tour, I want to do Australia, whether even watching someone like a Paulette, watching her new chapter of her career right now, is really amazing to see as well. So I think DJing's lifelong. So it's like maybe I won't be able to tour in the way that my peers are touring right now. That's not to say I can't do that in 10 years. Definitely.
And you realise, like, I think now to the kind of things I was doing 20 years ago compared to what I'm doing now. I've just got so much more inner confidence about what the hell I'm doing than I used to have. I used to panic if things were not going right.
Yeah.
And when you panic, you suddenly start making terrible musical decisions. Which we've all done. But I just find that the experience is the thing that really helps you kind of get out of tight spots sometimes.
Yeah, definitely. And knowing why you're playing a record, knowing what it means, knowing the emotional impact it can have on a dance floor. I think that only comes from, it's like driving in a car, isn't it? You know, from doing it all the time. I always like have a rule of thumb. Like I think out of 5 gigs, like one's sick, one's amazing, one's like, yeah, that was cool, that was good, like vibes, kind of just in it, locked. One's like, yeah, it's all right, it's cool. One's just like, oh, didn't enjoy that. And one is like, oh my God, am I even a DJ? Do I even belong here? Like, I'm never doing it again. Then the next week you have a great one. You're like, oh, okay, I'm back in the room. Phew. Okay, it's not all lost. And I have that, I literally go through that cycle, you know, every couple of months.
I think everyone has that. You know, everyone thinks that every DJ has an amazing gig every night, but they really don't.
No, and it looks like that on socials, and it's actually, you know, it's 100% not. And it's so weird. I think also when you look back at like maybe videos, I listen back to a lot of my sets, and I record a lot of the sets, and the bits that I probably think that I lost them are the bits that I actually enjoy the most. Which I think is quite strange. You know, I don't know what that's telling me, but I'm just aware of it.
Yeah, that is quite weird, isn't it?
Yeah.
What's the proudest moment of your career so far? You've done a lot of things for a kid from South London.
Yeah. What's the proudest moment? That's a good question. I don't know if I have them in like sort of milestone moments or ones that I go back to, and maybe I'm always sort of moving forward. I think this year playing in Arcadia at Glastonbury with Annie Mac was a really proud moment, but feeling confident up there, not feeling imposter syndrome, not feeling like I shouldn't be there, not compromising what I played, like I'm still playing like, you know, my Latin club bangers, like she's playing, you know, her hard house and techno, but finding this sweet middle ground and playing to 60,000 people was kind of crazy. That was definitely a proud moment for me, quite full circle, because if you'd have asked me 10 years ago when I was trying to like maybe say hi to her, trying to get her attention, whether I'd be playing in a way with her that where she felt like a peer, then I probably wouldn't have believed you. And then I think just having been on radio this long and still loving it, and still, you know, it's 35, so 10 years now I've been on national radio. 10 years I've been at BBC on air. And to still go in every day or go in every weekend and love it and enjoy it and feel like I'm growing, and I know it's, you know, I know that sometimes it changes, like cultural currency always changes, how people feel about institution always changes, you know. But ultimately, I know that what I'm there to do and the mission that I have and the people that I want to play and uplift and support and the stories that I want to share kind of outweigh that. So I probably will be a BBC lifer for that reason, but as long as I have a mission, you know?
Yeah, and do you see it as having a mission?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I do.
And what do you feel that mission is?
I think it's just to keep on telling underserved stories. That's what the BBC is great at, and is finding the underserved stories that I can tell. Do you know what I mean? And that's what I think that's what we should be striving to do, is to tell those stories across, you know, all the departments and all the networks and all those things. So that is the mission, yeah, to keep on telling and shining a light on those underserved stories. My thing is just through music and making it fun.
That's a really good way to end an interview.
Thank you. Oh, thanks, Bill.
Thanks
it's
so much.
Nice. Thank you. Oh, thanks, Bill.
Thanks for listening to the DJ History podcast. If you enjoy these interviews, it would help us enormously if you could rate or leave reviews for our show. Also, if you're on social media, we'd appreciate it if you could increase the love by sharing these shows to your followers. We don't have a big budget to promote these, so we're relying on you to help us get the word out. Big love from the DJH crew.